So before we dive into the Eastern Conference, I'll just talk about the Lakers for 4 seconds. There will be a video later where I discuss the moves that they've made so far. I'm just waiting to see if they make more moves. There's that for you. Let's talk about the East. LeBron is gone. The Celtics fan in me is excited because I think that my team is the favorite to make the NBA Finals now with respect to the 76ers as well as the Toronto Raptors. So let's talk about this. Given that Boston won 55 games last season without Gordon Hayward and without Kyrie Irving for a stretch, you assume that this team could end up winning 60 to maybe 61, 62 games or so. Because then you also look at Jason Tatum's improvement and perhaps Jaylen Brown making a bit of a jump as well, and combine all that with how good this team was on defense, and they can just kind of do whatever the hell they want. Like, Brad Stevens has endless options with this team because we assume the starting lineup is going to be Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, right? All 5 of those guys can shoot. All 5 of those guys can dribble. And all 5 of those guys, other than Kyrie, is either a good to very good to potentially great defensive player. And then between Marcus Smart, if he's on the team, he can play defense. Aaron Baines is a good defender, very good signing for them to get him back. Terry Rozier can make plays off the bench. Marcus Morris will hit shots off the bench. Morris can also fit into their switchy big defense, so yeah, the team's just versatile as hell, and they also have the best coach in the East, and Kyrie, who, depending on who you're talking to, is probably either the second or third best player in the Eastern Conference, so I think the writing's on the wall. But if we could talk about everybody else, it does depend on how big of a jump Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons make. I don't expect Simmons to be knocking down three-pointers like that next year, but could he have a bit more of a post game, or maybe more of a cutting game, or he could have like a pull-up mid-range, or even just more floaters and that kind of thing, and improve on his free throws? Yeah, I think those things could be a possibility. There's also the chance that Markelle Fultz is just a little farther along in terms of making jump shots and being respectable from out there. And hell, even if Fultz is not going to be this awesome shooter, at least not right now, his ability off the dribble is still pretty damn impressive. And I think Simmons is so good that he could make up for having another guy in the lineup who's not as good of a shooter, just because I don't know if there's too many teams in the regular season, at least, that are going to be able to stop Simmons from getting into the paint, you know? And that's also another thing, you know, did he learn from the Celtics series where the switching and physical defense just didn't allow him to be comfortable, and it forced the ball out of his hands a lot of the time? Perhaps he learns from that in ways of, like, I don't know, attacking switches and coming off of screens a little harder and that kind of thing. Hopefully Brett Brown helps him out in that process, I guess. And then, of course, Joel Embiid. And with Embiid, it's a matter of, one, just can he go for 70-something games? Can he play 32 minutes a game? I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if we're ever going to see Joel Embiid really playing like that in regular seasons. And if we do, it's not going to be for a while, which is fine. I mean, if the difference with Philly is like, 59 wins or 55 wins, but Embiid is totally ready to go for the playoffs, then of course you'd rather have the 55 wins. But, him being in shape and everything would be awesome, because he was getting gassed in that Celtics series. But then we also look at his shooting, which could improve, because it took a bit of a downturn this season. I think there are moments when he takes jump shots that are not always the best shots. He's a little too quick to shoot it, and if he can calm down on those things, and if he can get a little better at passing out of the low post, then that'll just make him a more complete offensive player, and as a result, it'll just make them a better team. So we should bank on these things. We should say, well, Philly's going to get better. If we're going to say that the Celtics young dudes are going to get better, then the Sixers guys definitely are. Of course, Brad Stevens will also have another year under his belt in the NBA, and that's maybe the most drastic advantage that the Celtics have over pretty much everybody in the East. But if we can get to Toronto now, I do like the Nick Nurse signing. I talked about this on my podcast. I never made a video on it. But Nick Nurse is the main reason why they started moving the ball around more and why Ibaka started actually dribbling, and Valanciunas would have the occasional play run through him, and DeRozan's assists were up, and I mean Toronto was looking good for a stretch, and then they ran into LeBron, and that's what happens with them. But now that LeBron's gone, is there a chance that some of those inner demons just won't be present for them, and maybe they'll have more confidence against the Celtics and against Philly, I guess? I mean, we must remember, there were stretches of the regular season last year where the Raptors overwhelmed the Celtics from an athletic standpoint, between DeRozan and Siakam, and I guess you could even say Ibaka. I mean, yeah, Horford's a better player than Ibaka, but I guess Serge is more athletic. And it just didn't seem like the Celtics were totally ready to play Toronto all the time last season. Now, if they went into a playoff series, they would have been more prepared, of course, but I do think that's something to at least hold your hat on if you're Toronto, and you hope that Kyle Lowry can at least maintain his regular season, and DeRozan can, and maybe that could carry over into the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, Kyrie is better than both of them. You could even say playoff Al Horford is better than both of them. But we still shouldn't rule out the Raptors, you know? I mean, yeah, they've been clowned by the best player ever for a few playoff series now, and I know it was really bad in the last one, but I don't know. I hold out hope, I guess. What about some other teams in the Eastern Conference? I think the Bucks are interesting, just because while I don't think that roster is really still that good, you do have Giannis with a legit coach now, and they won 44 games last year. And I wouldn't be shocked if just Giannis and Budenholzer carried them to at least 5 or 6 more wins, and maybe even more than that if Eric Bledsoe is better than he was this season for them, and if he can approach prime Phoenix Suns Bledsoe, who was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. If Tony Snell can just get the mental side of his game back, because he wasn't very good this season. It was one of those cases where he didn't really know when to shoot, didn't know when to dribble, but 2 years ago he was one of the best role players in the NBA. He shot 40% from 3, he was playing good defense, being just a nice part of the offense, putting up 7 to 10 points a game. And actually, to his credit, he was that for a decent chunk of this previous season as well. It was towards the end of the year where he kind of fell apart, and then in the playoffs he was just awful. So if he can be there, and then they recently acquired Ilyasova, which, I mean, is a pretty meh deal, but given that Jabari just kind of wasn't giving them anything, then, hey, I mean, if Ilyasova can walk in and just make 37% of his threes on a solid 3 to 4 attempts a game and give this team some spacing, then, hey, maybe all that combined with the fact that Giannis is as good as he is, and Budenholzer is going to have these guys running actual offense now, and he's not going to have stupid moments of just having Jason Terry in the game in Game 7 of the playoffs, and he's not going to play Tyler Zeller too many minutes. Is Zeller even on this team anymore? I don't remember. But you just combine all those things, and yeah, Milwaukee could be a problem. Do I think they're good enough to really go through the Celtics or Philly? No, because I think at a certain point the talent discrepancy will just catch up with them. And sure, Giannis is the best player in the East, but I don't think he's not LeBron, okay? So I don't think he can single-handedly carry the Bucks through the Eastern Conference. If we look at I don't know. I mean, after that, I think there is a bit of a drop-off. Like, could Indiana be better? Yeah, I mean, Oladipo, just another season. Sabonis getting better. Miles Turner, got to remember him if the offense is going to be a bit bigger this season. As I say all the time with him, if he's going to shoot more three-pointers. They signed McDermott, which, similar to the Ilyasova move, I don't think is really doing too much, but whatever, he can make some shots for them. I guess we could talk about Washington. If everything goes right, if the whole team is healthy, if Kelly Oubre's shooting is a real thing, then they're probably still not as good as the Celtics, Raptors, or Sixers because, number one, they have a huge void at center. It's called Jan Mahimi. Number two, Scott Brooks is their head coach. And number three, I can't think of a single player on that team who is like a legit, really good defender. John Wall of a couple years ago, sure, but I mean, hell, even 2 seasons ago, John Wall's defense dropped off a bit, so he's not the lockdown dude anymore, and hey, you know, that team is what it is. And then there's still my beloved Miami Heat that are just sitting right in the middle with Spoelstra's fundamentals, but unfortunately their best player is Goran Dragic. And Dragic is good, but if he's your best player, you're not the best team in the East. So, yeah, I would say the Celtics are the team to beat in the East. And that's about it.